Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of YEV. And who joins me as usual is Alex and Kevin, and we're going to be talking about pay per mile and also ULEZ charges. Quite a interesting topic, which I think we're going to get a few questions along the way. So, where should we start, chap? Shall we start at pay per mile? So I think there's been quite a bit of controversy, is probably the right word for it. Obviously, there's a lot of reactions that have been happening on this particular subject. And I mean, it's obviously not coming in until 2028. So what have we got to worry about? Nothing, right?
I think it's interesting seeing everyone worry about it. I mean, it hasn't even been confirmed yet. It's all still rumours. We'll find out, I guess, in a few weeks. Road charging's been going around and round and round for ages. I mean, it's a very hard one to police. I don't know how you go about doing that, really.
No, and I think the reason why they're bringing it in, because they're apparently losing a lot of money through fuel duty because the number of EVs on the road, and how many EVs are on the road now? Like over 1 million, isn't there? So I can understand that. And how are they going to police that? I've seen detail about maybe on telematics, maybe I'm not sure how that would work. Maybe via MOT, and also being honest and saying how many miles a year you do and pay up front. So there's quite a few suggestions out there, but I think certainly they're going to need at least 3 years to work out how they'll actually do it. And hi, Commute Branch Line, hi, Soren. So it's going to be very interesting to see how this is actually going to pan out. But let's just go through the facts and what we know so far. And feel free. Hi, Casey. How you doing, buddy? Feel free. Anyone's got any questions about pay per mile, and then we're going to move on to ULEZ and the changes with ULEZ and the congestion charge, all hitting everyone's wallet in some way or another. So pay per mile, what we know so far, 2028 is supposedly going to be the when they're going to start it. We don't know how they're going to do it. And like Alex mentioned, it's probably going to be in the budget, which I'm sure we'll cover, right, guys? I'm sure we're going to be covering that.
Assuming there's going to be something interesting in it. I mean, it's with all of these things, you never know, do you? There's all this speculation, and then he comes around to it, and it's like, oh yeah, no, this hasn't happened. Yeah.
Well, if it's bad, I'm not on. You'll know that I've thrown my computer around the room a few times. But covering pay per mile again. So this is only for electric vehicles, right? Is it just for cars, guys?
I've heard it's for plug-in hybrids too. I mean, as I say, it's not finalised and announced, but I don't know how you go about doing that for plug-in hybrids without massively disincentivizing them. It's lunacy.
That's really
not for vans. That's the other thing. It's just for cars. It's not for vans.
So is this for the PHEV owners, so plug-in hybrid owners that only run on electric? They might think there's a bit of a loophole there, and I would think that would be the same. So how can they make that fair? That's going to be so difficult.
Double taking it, isn't it? You're taking it twice from them.
But to my mind, surely this is going to end up with people kind of cheating and fudging things, and doing all sorts of other bits and pieces. Just going to end up with people cheating their mileage.
Yeah,
because you'll get. I think it'll. I mean, it does have. I've been reading articles that the knock-on effect for like maintenance and service records and wear and tear on a car could be potentially huge, because there'll be more and more people trying to hack that with mileage blockers and stuff like that. Because there are, I've seen videos of even things like high-end Lamborghinis where they press a certain sequence and it stops the mileometer going up. And it's like, so I think the technology for people to fiddle with it is far in advance of actually logging it at the moment.
Well, KC just putting an interesting comment in saying that how they're going to get the mileage data, where they're going to get the mileage data from. MOT is obviously every 3, you only have an MOT on a new car after 3 years. So how are they going to work that out? And self-reporting is going to be a bit of a laugh. Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Right, Roland.
The one way
worth remembering as well. Sorry.
Leased cars. It's because leased cars, you declare a mileage. So that would then unfairly penalise the people who will do it honestly, leased cars. But then lots of people go under mileage on their lease. And how do you go about getting it back from a leasing company that's potentially paid it already?
But it's worth remembering as well. I mean, I think it's just over 3 years to install any form of home charging point. So this was originally for like home charging grants and so on, but every home charging point for the last 3 years has had to be smart. And to be honest, most of them before that would have been anyway, because it was part of the, strictly speaking. Now, the thing is, with that's potentially a good way of kind of underpinning this. But actually, if you do that, people will just start using dumb chargers and, outdoor C-form ports and other bits and pieces. So that's one avenue that I had considered that they might use for it, but it seems a bit short-sighted to be considering that, really.
Yeah. And the one thing that concerns me is obviously currently technically fuel cars pay per mile through fuel duty. But with that, there's an incentive for more and more efficient cars, because the more miles per gallon you do, the less your fuel duty is. But this system of pay per mile, there's no incentive for you to get a smaller, more efficient EV, because you'll pay the same pence per mile if you're in a Hyundai Insta or an Ioniq 9, which are two very different vehicles for, wear and tear on the road and size of space they take on the road.
Yeah, and let me just rush through the comments, and then I want to talk about a couple of things, which is electric motorbikes, which I had an experience of today, which I must mention, and something else which I'll come to in a second. But so Roland's put, is pay per mile really a problem as long as it's universally applied to all road users? And this is my gripe: the fact that you've got diesels out there which pay next to nothing in terms of, I suppose that's road fund license. That's not applicable. Sorry.
But if you think most of those cars in the really cheap road tax are all Dieselgate era vehicles.
That's true. That is very, very true. So Malcolm, thanks for commenting. Agreed. Self-reporting isn't going to work. Yeah, there's definitely going to be some loopholes and people just taking the P155, isn't there? Pay per mile is not a good idea if you want to incentivize mainstream EV adoption. More of the Labour fear, uncertainty and doubt, as if we need any. Absolutely. It's not. It's certainly not going to help things on the EV side. I mean, I think they've done enough to put a load of negatives in there for that. Insurance company mileage declaration. And do they really police that, though? I would argue that insurance companies don't really police that from what I've experienced. KC have just popped in. The only solution is to remove fuel duty and go full PPM. And that will still be unfair, as Kev mentioned. Yeah, absolutely great point to be made there. Malcolm's just put in there are several countries further ahead than the UK in EV adoption: Norway, Sweden, Denmark, Netherlands. Not aware of any other companies proposing pay per mile. Yeah, I don't think there are. And I suppose this is I'll mention it now before I forget it. But I was on the road today, just driving to go and pick up my daughter, and there were these guys on electric motorbikes. And it was dark and there were no lights on them at all. I think you're just going to get more of that sort of behavior. I think electric bikes are a great idea, but, legislation and having proper rules in place to have these really great vehicles, but not with people taking the mick and potentially going to kill themselves by not having lights on the backs because they're evading the police. I really couldn't believe what they were doing. It's a wild west out there, I think. And I think from my experience, people don't mind paying extra tax. Yes, we are paying from every single avenue, but that tax money, where is it actually going? Is it good value? Is it fair? Fair and value. If taxes are coming in, they're going to come in to support all the services and everything else in the country, which is fair enough. But is it fair, and are we getting value for money? And I'd argue we aren't getting either of those things.
And one thing that people haven't taken into account is there may be reductions in things, the cost things, because of the improvements in air quality. I mean, I saw it when I was in the Caribbean. So the Caribbean doesn't appear to have any Euro legislation on vehicle emissions. So you could smell the pollution. Whereas you think, even if you go to London now, London is a lot, the air is a lot cleaner there because of the adoption of electric vehicles, electric buses and things like that.
Yeah, in terms of, and we'll get to the congestion charge and the ULEZ in a minute, we're all, generally speaking, on this podcast, because we're EV drivers, there might be people that are interested in EV, that want to find out a bit more. But it does feel like they're trying to penalise us a little bit too early in a lot of cases. but then arguably 2028 is quite a long way away. And in the words of the EV guy, Jordan, as I think I saw on one of his posts recently, you know, he knew that this was coming. And I think, I suppose we all knew it was going to come at some point to help bolster the black hole. They love using that word, don't they? The black hole in the taxes in the UK, when the, you know, particular vehicles aren't getting charged for the miles they're doing. But like I say, I just want to echo the statement of value and fairness, because I think that is absolutely paramount. And if people don't think it's, you know, either of those things, I think people are just going to take the mickey.
Well, you could argue that some people might start considering it at the moment as a, even though it's, you know, we pay duty on fuel, as a poll tax for driving. And look how far that got. I mean, I'm not old. I'm old enough to remember as a child there being like quite a lot of civil unrest for something like that. And that's not the path you want to go down. It needs to be done in a considered way. And as you say, I think it's too soon to take away the carrot. We can see the early adopter stage is done with EVs. Now we need to get the mainstream stage, and that mainstream stage is struggling with EVs.
Yeah, I think around where I live, most people have got driveways. So the EV adoption in my area, in my kind of very local area, is really strong. I see EVs all the time. But it's those other areas that, you know, don't have the accessible charging. I know we've spoken about it a lot, you know, access to cheap overnight charging or charging at work, this sort of thing. Those people they're not going to be electrifying their car. Young people, which I'm sure we'll touch on very, very soon on the podcast about, you know, electric cars aren't really for young people, are they? If they haven't got their own place and their own charger, you know, they're going to ask mum and dad, oh, can I plug my car in? Oh, no, because we've got to plug our car in. You know, I see that as being a bit of a, you know, as a no-no. So I think there's a large amount of people that aren't going to go for electric, and they'll probably use these kind of things to go, you know, throw back in EV owners' faces saying, oh yeah, but you got to pay this, or, you know, and all the other negatives that aren't necessarily factual about electric cars, which I'm sure that everybody has heard before. So without further ado, I know, perfect timing. Alex is back for the second.
Well, we've got a couple more comments in there. So,
oh yeah, okay, yeah, good point. Is it because it just said that you were right, Kev? That you did, because I missed that.
Well, no, and the other one is
Kev is absolutely right. Fuel duty pays for hidden costs, general pollution, healthcare. See Bradford NHS in their low emission cost zone. Casey's also popped in here. Oh, and a 3-ton Defender chewing up the roads on a school run.
And
apparently,
this is where
1.5-ton Ionic is the big problem.
I mean, and this is where, if we think about it, where current fuel duty actually works quite well, because a 3-ton Defender is going to use more fuel than a Toyota Aygo, and it is proportional. So the one that's actually using more pays more, but a blunt pence per mile is not really, it's not taking into account the type of vehicle, which, you know, everyone says that everyone's getting big cars. Well, you're not incentivizing people to get smaller cars with a pay per mile, because you pay per mile if you've got a 4-ton Cybertruck, if it was allowed you, or a little Leap Motor T03. There's no differential.
No, you're absolutely bob on there, Kev. You know, having that difference between big inefficient vehicles versus efficient ones, that paper mile just doesn't take that into consideration at all. No. Malcolm's just popped in there. Mixed messages from government. Yep, as per usual, mate. Rebates on new EVs to encourage switching to EV, then threats of paper mile. It's like driving while pressing both accelerator and brake. Smashed it. Love it. Yeah, it's a show of much brownness, I think. I think they just need to have a bit of a reset on it all. I really think they just need to reset and just think about it all again. It just seems so reactive, and it's just
they need to also listen to kind of the people involved, like EVA England, the people who are trying to explain. You know, we've had cases of it in the past with the charging infrastructure, you know, where you have to have contactless on anything above 8 kilowatts, not doing the simple differential between AC and DC charging. It seems the people making these, or advising the people to make these decisions, just maybe haven't even driven an EV So,
Nah.
I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if, if it's a lot of this is coming out of London, they might not even have a car because they go everywhere on the tube. And yeah, London's great because it's got great public transport. But you go to a rural area and it's not, you have the tube. You compare it to rural versus that. And pay per mile is going to unfairly penalise those in rural areas. You might be able to go in Cardiff or Swansea 4 miles to the shop, but it might be a 30-mile round trip for someone in a rural area.
Yeah, it's fair.
London's great. Just don't forget your stab-proof vest. Was it the Ricky Gervais advert on the tube at the moment? I would say ultimately, don't have your phone out and don't take your nice watch. I don't have a nice watch, so I'm all right. Right, so I think we should move on to the next subject, which is ULEZ. Unless anyone's got any other questions about paper mile, I think we've pretty much covered everything. It'd be interesting to see what Rachel Reeves has got to say in the next budget. But yeah, any more questions, whack them in quick while we transition to the next.
The other thing with these budgets is a lot of stuff seems to get leaked, the worst case scenario, and then what actually happens is somewhere in the middle, and it's like, oh, it wasn't that bad after all, type thing. I've noticed that over the last few budgets that they've.
Well, there was all that. Yeah, there was all that stuff last year, wasn't there? We were talking about. Was it last year or the year before? They were talking about salary sacrifice and company car tax and how it was kind of giving higher paid people basically more tax breaks than people who were lower earners. Nothing ever came of it. It's quite common. But the whole paper mile road thing has been going around for ages. The amount of infrastructure required to implement it is vast. I mean, if you think about the London ULEZ and how if you don't put it on every single road, you'll just end up with all the back roads kind of full of cars trying to dodge the cameras. You'll never make it work. You did have to do it on the motorways, I guess, first, but even then, that's not likely to happen.
Or black boxes in every car, like young drivers have to get actual insurance.
Again, though, I mean, the cost of doing that is enormous. I mean, where does that money come from to put that in place?
It would cost more than you get pence per mile to implement.
Exactly, yeah. It's just nuts.
Well, maybe I'm going to put my silver hat on for a little bit here. Is it potentially hang on a minute, like a digital ID thing? I'm just going to drive my car. So to turn on my car, I need to press the button on my phone to say that I'm driving the car. Or maybe they're monitoring the speed you're going. If you're in a taxi, obviously that doesn't really quite work, or in a bus. But is there a way of maybe track? I mean, that's the obvious way of tracking this, isn't it, with our phones? And if we're giving away our particular details in a particular method, that would probably be the easiest way of doing it, would it not?
Well, technically, out of the three of us, there's one person here who actually starts the car with their phone at the moment, and two of us that don't. So,
why do you think
car doesn't even know what a phone
CDR,
is? Kev? I was going to say, my phone doesn't even know. My car doesn't even know what a phone is. It thinks it's one of those things with a trim phone.
Mobile phone tracking. Yeah, exactly, Roland. That's what I'm thinking. Yeah, and if anybody doesn't know, if anyone's a director, I'd be interested to know your thoughts on the recent digital confirmation ID-wise on Companies House, which I've been informed about recently. Be interesting to hear what people think about that. If they're going to bring in 3p per mile, this is from Malcolm, I guarantee it won't be long until it's increased to 5p and then 10p. You're absolutely right.
Well, I remember seeing first articles when it was muted decades ago, and they suggested 70 pence a mile. And that was because that was to replace all the duties and stuff like that. But you work that out. I mean, just a 400-mile trip is 200 odd quid. So imagine what that would do to the economy if no one could travel.
The other thing is, I mean, if you think about VED, I mean, I have two cars here. I mean, admittedly, one is VED exempt, and that's the Rifter. I can't drive those two at the same time. The Rifter next year will qualify for. Sorry. I'll have to pay tax on that next year. Paper mile, in some ways, mate, if you have got more than one vehicle, is a kind of a fairer way of taxing based on usage and so on than a kind of a flat rate, which is what we have at the moment. I know it's unpopular, and I know it's a kind of seen as a foot in the door for tracking and kind of monitoring where you're going. But I mean, the reality of it is that a lot of us, it's pretty easy to track a lot of us anyway. So because of these wonderful things.
Throw them away as soon as possible. The problem is you can't do anything without them these days. That's the problem.
No,
It's
I know.
the same with internet. You know, you've got to have an email address to access anything these days.
You think a lot of us have sacrificed anonymity for convenience because we put everything on our phone because it's easier. So we've kind of done it to ourselves in an extent because you've said, oh, it's so easy. You know, like the fact you open and start your car, Tim, with your phone because it's easier. Remember when you used to have car keys? Remember those days? I know Alex still got them on his Polo, but...
Did you see that Mozilla report a couple of years ago where they were saying that it was an American report, but they were saying that all the car companies, the data they can collect through their apps, and it includes things like menstrual cycles and sexual preferences and all sorts of things. And it's part of the terms and conditions for the digital services on those vehicles. I'm not joking either. If you look at this, Mozilla Corporation, Mozilla Foundation did a report on it. It's called Vehicle Privacy, and it is a nightmare. And there's things like they can infer things like moods and all sorts of other bits and pieces through the things that you're listening to and the places that you're going and all. It's a privacy nightmare. It's quite an interesting read.
What I mean, my argument would be, Kev, to your comment earlier about me accessing my phone, my car with my phone, etc., is the fact that why can't we have convenience and not be tracked everywhere we go?
You can, but you'd have to pay for it. I saw there was a thing a while back where someone priced up how much our digital identities are worth, and it's not much. It's not much at all.
Think yourself, mate.
But no,
surely we're a consumer that is going to be able to purchase things. I suppose it depends on the value of the person and what they make and that sort of thing, surely.
But if you think about every single person reached by an advert online and what proportion of those people buy something and how much that product is worth, the number of times that an advert is shown compared to the number of times that you get stuff back from it, you're actually paying a tiny amount towards that advert, if that makes any sense. So yeah, if you think over the sum total of that, it's not the total cost to for all the companies whose adverts you've ever seen and on a kind of a per view basis is tiny. It's not a lot of money. So to have a completely ad-free internet is actually, it's not that expensive.
But it did kind of go through my mind that Kev talking about not having a key to drive my cars. The TVR does still have a key. Whether they can track an electric TVR will be a different story. But I was thinking, as the process, it's been 5 years, so it's all these things go through my head, and that actually this could be a loophole that I've found, but perhaps be worth millions of pounds. If anybody wants to get in early and buy it now.
To be fair, they'd find it easier to track a petrol TVR because they'd look at the number of times you call the recovery and ask them to pick you up.
Or just follow the oil trail, you mean? Yeah. Or just hear it. Actually hear it. That's unless it's mine. It's very similar to the dirt cheap smart TVs. They're cheap because of the data from viewing habit. Fox, hi everyone. It's about control. Paper mile is to stop people traveling. And commuter branch line, Tesla collecting data to support fully autonomous driving and mobile taxi. UK FSD edges closer. I just feel safer giving all my data to Elon and Tesla than I do to our government, which is a sad affair, really. But there we go. Yeah, I know you might make a face, mate, but that's just how I feel. Anyway, moving on. Let's get into ULEZ and congestion charge. So I think my main question was, and I think maybe other people's are as well, what's the difference between the congestion charge and the ULEZ? Who wants to take that one?
So I think Alex has been the person who's experienced it recently with a fueled car.
Yeah.
We can kind of sum up the costs and everything as well.
So they're two different zones. So the congestion charge is in the middle of London. It's like a teeny tiny area in the middle of London. And it's been around for about 25 years. I think it came in like 2002, 2003. And basically it's got tighter and tighter and tighter in that time in terms of what you can and can't bring into it. At the moment, the only vehicles that are exempt are, if you don't count the kind of case-by-case stuff, is electric vehicles, but that ends on, I think, Christmas Day this year. You have to pay in certain hours when it's busiest, it's a congestion charge. So you drive into the middle of London and you get picked up by the congestion charge cameras, and then you have to pay. I'm going to get this wrong now, aren't I? I'm trying to add my bill together. It was, I think it's one of them £17.50 and the other one's £12.50. And I've got to try and work out in my head how my bill was cut up. I believe the congestion charge is the one that was £17.50.
I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right.
The ULEZ basically goes out to the extremities of the M25. There are some bits that are missing. There are some very strange things around Chessington World of Adventures. It literally finishes at the end of the road of Chessington World of Adventures. So if you're driving to Chessington World of Adventures, you get a ULEZ charge if you've got a vehicle that doesn't comply. Now, interesting thing with this is, so I started looking into the whole Euro 6 thing and the whole and emissions and diesel emissions and stuff before the diesel stuff broke. If you look at, I think it's like October or November 2014 Fleet World, there's a whole story in there about the ULEZ charges and all sorts of other bits and pieces, basically going, there's an air quality problem with diesels. And it's interesting that the cutoff point for petrol and diesel is the point at which their emissions align, and that's Euro 6 for diesel and Euro 4 for petrol. Is their NOx emissions align on those two. So if you've got a pre-Euro 4 diesel, and that's like 2006, I think, if I remember, I'm getting my dates, but I'm tired, sorry. If you've got a pre-Euro 4 diesel, which is it's quite an old car, you pay a charge, and that's 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And if you've got a pre-Euro 6 diesel, you face the same charges. Now, Euro 6 for diesels is like quite recent; it's like 2016 onwards. So there's quite a lot of diesel cars that can get affected by this, but actually you can buy quite an old petrol car that's still compliant. You get some where on both fuels where they've been updated to meet their respective standards. Now, with this, so I went into London a couple of weeks ago, as you know. I went in on the Friday night. I spent 2 hours of my Friday in London in the Polo, and I got charged the full ULEZ amount. And then on Saturday, I drove into the congestion charge zone. It was before the congestion charge zone applied, but when I drove back out, the congestion charge zone was live. So I got one congestion charge zone fee. And then as I drove out of the ULEZ on the M4, I got another ULEZ charge. So I got 2 ULEZ charges and 1 congestion charge, and it cost me £42.50 to take the Polo into London.
Wow. Not including fuel.
Not including fuel. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I
won't do it often, but I just think it's one of those things. It's like, for the novelty of having the car on Pall Mall, I can't really complain. But it's a lot of money, and you can see why people. I mean, if I lived in London, I think I'd be probably renting a lockup somewhere outside and just getting the tube out to it.
Yeah, I think Christmas Day is probably the only day that you don't get charged on. I think it's either ULEZ or congestion or both. But yeah, Christmas Day is the only day. Like it might be. I would think it would be a good day to have a bit of a protest about it, but everyone's seeing their family at that time, so that's probably the reason why they did it in the first place. Fox has just popped in. If everyone just didn't pay, they couldn't tax us. It's okay for Khan to drive V8 Range Rover and doesn't pay. It's a really good point. I mean, when was the last time you saw an MP actually driving an electric vehicle? I can't actually remember, because every time I see cars pull up outside Downing Street, they don't look very environmentally friendly, unless I've missed it.
Sorry.
But it's a little bit of data that I saw was, I mean, the good thing about this and the congestion charge is a NOx emission reduction of about 22%, which is really good. And I think there is, and I've mentioned it a few times before, there is a big focus on CO2 rather than NOx emissions, and NOx emissions the one that's bad for you. And so many times I've been outside our school, our local school. We're lucky enough I can walk my daughter to school, and it's cold. Everyone's got their engines on, waiting for their kids to go in, just diesel fumes everywhere. It's disgusting. Literally right outside the school. That needs to change for sure.
And if you think that plays straight back into pence per mile wouldn't cover that. You could run your engine for hours and not.
It's a very good point, Kev.
It's quite funny as well. I remember having a chat with a journalist about 10 years ago, and they were saying the best thing if you're thinking about air quality in London is to put all the cabbies in V8 Range Rover Sports. He's saying that, because if you think they're all in diesel taxis, not so much anymore, but I think they're all in diesel taxis, you stick them all in Range Rovers. You have a CO2 problem, but not not so much of a NOx problem because they're all cleaner than the. It's
There are
interesting.
those weird hybrid things these days, aren't they? The new companies, which are kind of like a i3 Rex, aren't they? Style thing. Weird contraption that is.
Um,
I've driven one of those. I quite fancy giving it a go.
I've driven the van version.
You have,
yeah.
Interesting.
The van version's very odd because it still has the steering turning circle of the taxi. So when I had it, I almost crashed into my driveway because it turned in far tighter than I thought it would. Literally, you can loop round in a normal road in the van as well.
Is it like steer by wire, or is it just like crazy,
it's just
like
a very crazy lock on it? Because what's the rule? Isn't it where does it have to turn around? Alex, remind me this. There's a certain roundabout for a hotel that has to make it round.
Oh God, yeah. I know the one you mean, and I can't think which one it is. Yeah.
So, is this the end of the charges? I mean, I can't remember who it was. It was either Roland or Malcolm mentioned that it'll come in and then it'll start going up. I mean, it's bound to go up, but I'm always especially with petrol cars back in the day. I always used to look at cars that are under 2001 because then the new CO2 tax, road tax charge coming in. There must be some loopholes here. I just can't. Maybe this is the pay per mile thing because I just can't think of a loophole for pay per mile if they're somehow tracking you.
The tax loophole you're saying about that on CO2 is to get a grey import. I know friends of mine are buying grey import cars and they're not CO2 taxed, so you can get whatever thumping great big engine you want. You pay the big engine charge tax, but you pay it on engine size, not on CO2 emissions.
Is that why people are importing nearly new Suzuki Jimneys? No, you can still get a nearly new.
Yeah, because they didn't pass, did they? Yeah. I'll tell you what, the car that I really wanted was the Nissan 350Z, but the slightly higher power one. And that was always 56 plate and newer. But yeah, I did notice that the import ones, so that's on any import from like.
Yeah, and on some random ones. I can't remember if it's because it was an import from somewhere else in the world, but a friend of mine had an Alpina 5 Series. It was some thumping great big like V8 thing, and I think it was a 5.7 or something massive. I can't remember. Anyway, that was on just the big engine rate. It was VED rate. It was dirt cheap for what it was.
So there's a couple of comments in here. Well, stop parents from using their cars is to say if you live within 2 miles of school, you can't use the vehicle. How do you regulate that? But generally speaking, the reason why they drive into school first is so they can drive straight to work. Driving to school first is driving to work straight after. But there's many complications at our school. It's a pain in the backside, but there we go. This pay for mile will force people to find a dodgy day to do an MOT. There's always the dodgy day to do an MOT. Let's be honest, isn't there? It'd be just really interesting to see what happens about it and how they're going to enforce it. And if there is going to be any pushback, but generally speaking, there doesn't tend to be any pushback on many things other than the big I conversation. And I think that tends to be the biggest issue. But there seems to be so many other issues with this government at the moment. I don't think they've got very long left. I mean, I don't know what the catalyst is going to be, but it feels like there's so many different items here that are pointing in the direction of they're not actually working for us anymore. They're just taking the mick, aren't they, in terms of so many different things. And this is where I go back to the value and fairness argument. I don't care how they tax me on my vehicle as long as it's fair and I'm getting value for the money that's going. Look at the roads. I had to mention it, didn't I? Look at the roads. The roads haven't got any better, have they? Was that in their manifesto to do something about the roads? I'm pretty sure it was.
Yeah.
The roads are still absolutely foobarred, aren't they? So, yeah. Is there any other? I'm just thinking. I'm a little bit spent on this subject without ranting about the government anymore. So, what have we missed here? Has anyone got any other questions about pay per mile and the congestion charge and ULEZ? I'll tell you what we should talk about. ULEZ for other areas of the country. So that's definitely coming in, isn't it? Because Oxford have got their particular.
And Bristol too.
Yeah, Bristol.
Yeah, Bristol got one. There was something like 12. They've got all different types because there's multiple different types of clean air zone depending on what types of vehicles they affect and whether they charge or not. But yeah, Bristol certainly has a zone, and it includes the
airport.
The main road that you would take to the airport. So
yeah, I mean the other thing is, but then Manchester could never get theirs through. I don't know what's happened with the Manchester one now, because that's kind of on stop, isn't it? Again.
Yeah, but with those, some of them, because there was a number of this all goes back about 10, 15 years. There was a massive study, and they found some enormous number of zones of the UK were exceeding EU set, and this is how far back it goes. There were EU set air quality limits, and like tens of local authorities across the UK had areas that exceeded the limits like 4 or 5 years after they were supposed to have met them. So they then had this kind of trickle down process of going, which ones are well on their way to meeting it, which ones need help meeting it, which one but will get there within a certain time frame, and which ones have got no chance. And the ones that have got no chance were then forced legally to go off and develop a policy which would be a type of clean air zone depending on what the traffic was, the traffic type was. So it's a long time coming, all of this, and it's one of those where it's like a few of the places have actually then had improvements in air quality that have meant they haven't had to introduce the zones at all. So I think Manchester's one of those. It's been a while since I've covered this, so apologies with the rustiness on it, but it was some inordinate number of roads and local authorities around the UK that were way out of line with NOx emissions.
We've got a couple of interesting comments in here. David, I'll come to yours, but I'm going to start with Malcolm. So pay per mile will be an added complication when you sell a car. It's a really good point, because if you go down the route of prepaying X amount of miles, how does that go onto another vehicle? Really good point. That's another complication with trying to track the miles, and depending on which method they use to track number of miles. David's put in here, I travel to Costa del Sol twice a year. Lucky chap. 4,000 miles per trip, 90% in France and Spain. How does this get accounted for? Our government do not have legislative jurisdiction in other countries. That would be really interesting. We're going to have to pay per mile when we're in France. So when we're going across the Channel Tunnel. This is why I think the more and more I think about it, it's got to be done on a mobile phone. You've got it all the time. It's got to be the most reliable way for them to do it.
My runs will have to be a bit shorter then when I go for a run.
You're not that fast, Kev. Don't worry, mate.
I do 1,000 miles a year on car.
Equally, if you're an expat with a UK plated vehicle and you're coming back and you're coming backwards and forwards to the UK from say a villa in Spain, but you're predominantly out there, but you're coming back and forth every once in a while, and you still have a UK plated car, you're paying VED on that, but you're not using the road. It's that issue already kind of exists. But yeah, I mean, I suspect that you're going to have to do it with some sort of proven sort of reporting. Odometer type setup. I don't know how you go about doing that though.
I think the reason no one's done it yet is because there's no easy way to do it. If it was easy, other countries would have, Norway and stuff like that would have probably worked out how to do it. I think it's not as simple.
The other way of doing it is to just get rid of VED on EVs. Just exempt, put EVs back to zero VED and then just tax them on a per mile basis. But again, you still come across the same issues when you're doing that.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how they get around it. I just think mobile phones. I really do think that's going to be the way that they do it, which kind of reinforces my beliefs around. I think they said, what was it, mandatory to have digital ID by the end of their term, and as I mentioned before, that they're already trying to put it through Companies House, already have done. I think that this is part of it. When I say part of it, it's just another way to track us to, tax in the ways that they want, rather than us trying to go down different routes to try and not evade tax so much, but trying to have a bit more of a choice of reducing our tax, let's say. But yeah, it just doesn't feel good, does it? It's just not a good feeling that they're just going to find another way to tax us after all the other ways that they're already taxing us. I mean, this country is ridiculous in terms of the amount of tax that we have to pay, and even when we die. I have a feeling PPM is going to be false come the budget. I'll hold my words. What do you mean by pulse, Kev?
I'm tempted to agree. Actually, I think that
Yeah.
I think it's been floated as an idea, and I'm not convinced it's ready yet.
It's
We'll
like
see. But
it's like we've said a few times, this may be to distract us from, or to make it so that the budget's not that bad. Again, it's you think of this, it's the worst. I just can't think from a technology standpoint how you could get it to work yet.
Not reliably, no.
The obvious thing would be basically to put VD or the equivalent of fuel duty on public charging, but that's expensive enough as it is. So again, you're going to discourage EVs. So
you make a very good point there, Kev. It's always
the easiest way to do it is like they do it on fuel, because the people who use the roads the most pay the most. The people who have the biggest cars pay the most. It's actually, as much as fuel duty is probably one of the fairest ways of doing it.
It is, yeah. It incentivizes you to buy the most efficient cars and drive them as little as you can.
So do you think a device on your smart charger is going to be the most fair way of doing it, let's say?
That infrastructure is already in place.
Yeah,
but you don't have to have something smart on your, potentially some sort of smart device on your smart meter at home that detects if you have more than an hour's worth of charge, something like 7 kilowatts going out of your house, and you're probably doing something that isn't just kind of cooking a roast dinner, aren't you? So
because I did read a report that actually now with AI algorithms, the grid and stuff, they can work out what's being run on different things because it has its own unique fingerprint. And you think there's not much apart from, say, heat pumps, maybe an electric shower. There's not much that has the same signature as an electric car charging off your mains, is it? There's not many things that consume 7, 11, or if you've got 2 cars, 14 kilowatts for set periods of time. Your shower will be 15 minutes, won't it? So I think it's actually probably, and it's probably the fairest way to do it. And I think it maybe should be per kilowatt hour, not per mile, because that incentivizes people to get more efficient EV. Like Casey's got an Ioniq 5, he'd pay less than someone who's got some big, thirsty, powerful EV.
This is the rub, isn't it? I mean, this is one of the things that's come up a lot over the last few weeks because of discussions about. There's been another round of EU data about plug-in hybrids, which we covered a few weeks when Jess was on, and kind of how inefficient they are and so on. I know that's a rabbit warren in itself, but there's this talk about CO2 and all the rest of it. Actually, it's a much smaller CO2 impact, and it's not at the tailpipe, but there is a CO2 impact with driving an EV. And so, there's no incentives at the moment, as Kev's saying, to kind of go for people to select the most efficient vehicle. And I think that's going to be a differentiating factor. I think at some point in future is they're going to have to be some sort of way of getting people to think twice about going electric, and to have a massive vehicle that they count as being 0 grams per kilometer, because it's not. It's much smaller than it would be if it was petrol or diesel, but it's not. It's not zero emission.
Yeah, got a few
pay per
comments.
kilowatt hour is a good way of doing that, much like fuel duty. But again, how you do it without ending up with people cheating the system is beyond me, because I think that's a very difficult thing to do.
And I'm always thinking about how can we mitigate it slightly? How can we reduce it? Does it look like I'll just cover my house in solar panels, have battery storage, all these things? How and this is what I like to try and talk about these kind of subjects and understand them better, is to make the decisions, whether that's paying for assets like solar panels, batteries to help reduce further costs moving down the line. But this is what I like talking about these subjects, and hopefully people enjoy it, jumping on and doing the same.
You mentioned a really good point there, because actually somebody who's got who's charging their EV 100% off solar power ought to be able to have a lower pence per mile rate than somebody who's just going from fast charger to fast charger and plugging in whenever they want. Again, it's a world of complexity, and actually you can argue that's the case.
Why? Because are they doing pence per mile like fuel duty? Where is that money actually going? And this kind of goes to the core of what I was talking about before, is what are they actually spending that money on? They're not really spending it on the roads that much, and
it goes in the main pot, doesn't it? It's oh yeah,
there it goes. Let's throw it away. Anyway,
there's some more comments.
Yeah, I'll jump on them. Can't see how looking at mobile phone data will be able to tell whether you were the driver or passenger. Very good point. Malcolm. Other than the fact that to open your car, I suppose you have to press a button, that kind of real, George Orwell stuff. Commuter branch line, I need to start a YouTube channel and live stream while driving, make all changes tax deductible. Great idea. When we lie to the government, we don't do that. It's a crime, and when they lie to us, it's being called a politician. Being accountable as a politician is also should be discussed. Richard, hey Richard, hope you're well, buddy. Hope you're on the mend. The only way I can see it working is using the MOT system, but of course that doesn't kick in until 3 years ownership.
That'll encourage me to get a new car every 3 years if it doesn't kick in.
Yeah, that would be a big encouragement. But what do you do with all the older cars, though, Kevin? After all of that,
if I put enough mileage on them, you get them to have them off me, Tim. I don't know if I can put that many miles in 3 years. So.
I've run out of space already, buddy. I'll have to start digging more driveways. Casey, in the last 40 minutes, I can't even count how many issues you've ended up talking about. Surely someone with a brain in the cabinet has also thought about it too. I'm not sure they have, Kev.
Honestly, I've had the unending pleasure of following government policy on EVs for the last 15 years, and it's all over the place. It really is all over the place. It's consistently like, oh yeah, we're doing this, but also it's also not really thinking about, they're kind of plugging holes on a colander all the time, and then occasionally just letting go of a few holes along the way. It's nuts.
Do you think it's because, like we talk about in this podcast about balance, is there's no balance? Because obviously you've got pro EV, anti-EV, and actually they need someone in the middle who can think about it holistically. And I think maybe you've got the lobbying groups on both sides are quite extreme on it, but there's no one in the middle because no one's going to lobby for the middle. And that's it. So maybe they just need to get that's on our podcast to just tell them how we think would be a fair way.
There we go. You've heard
if anyone's listening, we do very attractive rates. Yeah.
Hey, and I think that we are pretty balanced. We've got petrol heads here. We're all petrol heads. We're all, charge heads as well. So I think, yeah, we're pretty well placed for it. But yeah, yeah, it's a whole new story. Maybe that could be the next subject. We should be running transport charges and taxes in the country to be balanced and fair.
To answer Mark's question, granny leads will be popular. But if you think with AI algorithms, no one's boiling the kettle for 14 hours. So again, the algorithms would be able to pick up a granny lead because it's no one's usage would be that weird, because it's quite weird usage, isn't it? Effectively, that's what's the problem with 3-pin plugs and them being potentially less safe, is because effectively you're boiling the kettle, but for 14 plus, or in the case of, what did we work it out with the Ioniq 9? If you did it on a granny lead, would it be something like 36 hours?
Yeah.
It was some ludicrous amount, wasn't it?
I mean, we're all spitballing here, aren't we? Really, we're all kind of second guessing, which I love to do. It's not very healthy for anybody, but this is what the podcast topic is actually based on. But it's just interesting to know, so we can, already have kind of opinion on it, I suppose, as well as the fact that there isn't anybody with a brain in the cabinet. So, thanks, David. That wasn't my comment.
Well, it's having experienced the ULEZ and the congestion charge, just to anchor the two together, as I say, if you look at the amount of infrastructure and also the amount of videos online of people cutting the cameras down and doing things to the cameras, you stick that out across, you have a network of things across the country following, for accurately tracking per mile. It would have to be on almost every road corner, wouldn't it? Because you can't do it any other way. The amount of time they'd spend repairing those cameras and trying to do things to it, it's not feasible in any hurry to do them the way that it's been done in London. Not at all. Incidentally, by the way, the one thing that I've noticed paying the congestion charge and the ULEZ is that the ULEZ being newer, it knows whether you've driven into the ULEZ, and with the congestion charge, it can't tell you for sure whether you have. You just kind of have to pay it, which I find kind of quite alarming. Now, I actually encountered that with an EV, because I had when we did the London to Brighton last year, The car that we were driving wasn't actually registered for the C charge exemption. That's the other thing that's worth remembering, probably worth pointing out as a bit of consumer advice. Don't drive your EV into London until you know for sure that it's registered for the C charge exemption, because the congestion charge doesn't know. The ULEZ camera system is much smarter. It knows from your number plate whether your vehicle is exempt or not, but the congestion charge cameras don't. You have to actually apply to be exempted on the system.
Doesn't it read? It's not even from the DVLA, is it? It reads it from some sort of resource which isn't that up to date. So it's something that, you know, the electric TVR, if it's ever done, it will be hopefully soon at some point, that I just have to register it and make sure it's not going to get congestion charge. Although I'm not going to take it to London anyway. I'll try and be fair and reasonable and balanced. I'm trying today. It's really, really difficult. If you flip it on all on its head and look at the manufacturers, they will one day say, buy this car and get 10,000 miles paid for. We'll sell more cars, more money. It's an interesting thought. A bit like back in 2000, buy this car and get free insurance, road tax for a year. Hotels. I'm not sure what that means, buddy. Please explain. We've got a very interesting emoji from Antonio. Thank you. Malcolm, I don't think they could monitor home EV charging if I always charged my EV off solar or house battery. Casey, you're attributing government ministers with skills, values and standards that they generally don't have. They have proven that they work to enrich themselves and their cronies, not the public.
And more recently have sound bites that can be shared on social media. That seems to be a bit of a trend at the moment. Say and do things that get shared a lot.
Yeah, well, this is, I think, how people are getting into the populist movement. You know, people that make great sound bites tend to do very well. But if you look at them on long form, they don't tend to be quite as engaging. I can think of two opposite ends of the spectrum there, Trump and that new guy that just got mayor in New York. David, maybe they'll try and introduce an annual MOT to part of their package. That would not surprise me.
Or at least just an annual. You wouldn't need an annual MOT. You just did an annual mileage check. We'd have to go into an accredited, like maybe an MOT station, and they just check and record your mileage for the first 2 years.
Weren't they trying to do the opposite with MOTs? Wasn't there talk about extending them out
to 2 years?
Yeah, to 2 years.
Dreadful idea. Yeah.
A very bad idea. Hi, Keith Lee.
Very bad idea.
Maybe they'll introduce mileage like HGV tachographs. The new tachographs also record GPS. Oh, God, sounding worse and worse as we go on, isn't it? Great comment, Keith, by the way. Just like as in, tracking again. Well, if we don't pay, they can't bring it in, a bit like poll tax. Yeah, that's a good point. We mentioned poll tax earlier. Road tax is a mess as well, with some diesels paying 25p whilst most EVs pay 195. Yep, we mentioned that earlier, Malcolm.
But most of them were Dieselgate diesels as well, era diesels.
And the crazy thing is, even within that, they could have exempted early pre-2017 EVs from the £25 charge, just as a kind of a token of appreciation for people who are buying cars that of that age are mostly quite compromised, unless you're buying something like a Tesla Model S. But even then, I know it's only 25 quid, but it's like, give people a nudge in the right direction. That would have been quite an easy thing to do.
I must admit, Model S is quite inviting, like a 66 plate, free supercharging, cheap tax. I understand why everyone's going after them. Plus, you can repair the batteries to a point. Yeah, till they're all knackered. Everyone's you can find. Mark makes a good point. Just get manufacturers to connect the millimeter to run backwards on regen. That sounds quite clever way of doing it. Do a Ferris Bueller style. Make sure the government's paying you per mile.
You don't want it to fall off the jack, though.
No, definitely not. Definitely not. Jack won't be happy. Commute branch line. All levels of government are firefighting 99.9% of the time, careering from one crisis to another while trying to placate the great unwashed and stay in power. It really shouldn't have got political today. I do apologise. It's probably
never going to.
It was bound to, wasn't it? Bound to. I think on that note, I think we've covered pretty much all of it, but I'm sure we will revisit it once Rachel Reeves gets a special Excel spreadsheet out or whatever she's got in a brown briefcase.
Yeah,
so
And it'll probably be like last time when we covered it. There's nothing of note.
Yeah, we had literally nothing last year, did we?
No. I'll tell you what, if anyone watched the video of the 106 Electric, which was originally electric, it's a V-Reg 1999. I believe it's still available. Russ is going to try and sell it. I suggested it was worth 10 grand. Could be worth a lot more than that, bearing in mind it's an older car. Probably won't get taxed in certain ways. And it is as modern to drive as a Nissan Leaf, but better in terms of batteries, etc. So, and yeah, a lot more fun to drive. But yeah, let's have a little wrap up. Thanks everyone for listening. We'll wrap it up as we normally do. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, and all those wonderful things. So in terms of, we normally end with what we're doing this week. So week just gone for me, just been busy, usual YouTube stuff. Got a few issues with a particular Tesla garage, which I'm going to be highlighting in a video coming in soon. Thankfully helped out by a local garage in Cleveland EV with parts. But this week I'm going to be, as usual, working for Dynamon and electrifying more fleets with our data driven insights. And also I'm going to be speaking with others at a roundtable event, Zemo event in Wrexham. I'll be bridging the gap of Wales and England with the chaps there. So, but on the wrong side of the country, a bit far north for you chaps, I think. But yeah, I'm going to be at that Zemo event if anyone's there.
That's probably as far away as Wales-wise. That's about as far away journey time-wise from either of us as where you are now, I think.
Okay, there we go. Well, I'm trying to build bridges. But yeah, Alex, what are you up to? What are you up to this week, buddy?
Mostly Secret Squirrel. I've got a PBW feature this week, and then I'm out and about this weekend for a little bit. So maybe nursing some Alka-Seltzer when we have our discussion next Sunday. So Christmas starts early this year.
Yeah, absolutely. Kev, what are you up to?
So not much from me, really. I mean, obviously this week I tested the Changang Deepal S07. Not that name's much of a mouthful. The same as, I mean, it seemed a very well spec'd car. I mean, it's difficult to tell the efficiency. I mean, it didn't seem awful when we drove it. So, but obviously need a longer run for that. But I mean, again, it's below the luxury car tax, and you do get a lot of car for that price. There is literally everything in it.
You get including an interior that looks like it's made out of animating clay, like modelling clay.
What was the term? I think you said they'd skinned
morph. They'd skinned morph, yes.
Morph. Remember the little character Tony Hart did? So and the other thing I'm going to be doing is I'm on the hunt for my next car because I need to order it. I probably ordered it I'm going to be ordering it too late if I need delivery by March the 1st, depending on the backlog. But I'm not sure what to get.
Model 3, mate. They've just brought the indicators back and they've extended the range. Unless you need a hatch, then that would be a Model Y, mate.
There's a few on the list. I just don't know which one.
We considered a job as a Tesla salesman.
I did think about it, but I think I'd be too overbearing.
Would they be allowed to leave unless they bought the car?
You're not leaving. I'm locking the doors. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. No, you don't need to. Yeah, they've got a different sales model anyway. It's not like, the old school. It's not the old school. You never know. I might end up just buying and selling myself instead. Get back into the trade for a while. But no, thanks everyone for commenting. Thanks everyone for listening. Big shout out to Richard Aylen. Hope you're getting well soon, buddy. Thanks for joining us. And we'll see everyone next week. Thank you very much indeed. And yeah, that's about it.